Welcome to a football show. His name is Zach Lyons. My name is Braden Gall, and we are 1 week away. That's right. Stone Dog in the comments in the opening seconds of the show, quoting me as I am speaking. This means our brains are all either way too attached or we need to get the hell off the NFL draft very, very soon. Zach Lyons, how are you, sir? Good to see you, my man. 1 week. 1 week.
1 week. Cannot wait. I'm trying to finish up while you're doing the intro. The little bit of the big board, the final big board, which is the final piece of the Stacking Inbox Draft Guide. So I'm finishing up just a little bit, and then you'll have my full attention.
All right. Oh, so during the show, Zach is still working on his subscriber base. That's what's happening here. StackingTheInbox.com, of course, is the website. You can catch him there, as well as PaulKarski.com, which, by the way, his show coming up after hours here, right around 2 o'clock today as well. If you don't know what's happening next week for the NFL draft, we will be going live after the Titans pick, maybe at 7, maybe any other time during the first round, live from Sinkers Beverages headquarters there in Wedgwood, Houston at the Track 1 building. Tickets are available right now in the YouTube comments and on the podcast feed. We're going to start posting those officially out to the public this afternoon, on Thursday afternoon. So we want to make sure all you good locals who love the show and have been contributing and supporting us for a long time get an opportunity to buy those first. I think there are maybe 2 tickets left for Friday night. The details, of course, all the money goes to charity Thursday and Friday night. Doors at 6:30 on Thursday evening. Edley's Barbecue, going to cater the deal for us. All you can eat, all you can drink beverages from Sinkers. We're going to go live in reaction, of course. We're going to give away a high-end bottle of bourbon like we did last year for those who get the most top 10 picks correct. So there's going to be a little raffle or a lottery or a giveaway, whatever, a competition, whatever you want to call it. Had a great time last year. We're going to do it again this year. Friday night, $100 tickets. Again, only a couple of those left. Going to be a very small, intimate gathering. We're going to watch the second and third round together, catered by Lachlan Table, 3-course meal, and a bourbon tasting. So the tickets, the links are available. You can get them anywhere on YouTube and on the podcast apps as well. So make sure you get your tickets now. We sold out last year. I imagine we're going to sell out this year again, and can't wait. Can't wait to get it done. I know you guys are going to be live on Saturday, correct? For 7 hours or something like that. Is that correct?
Until the draft's over, baby. We don't stop.
So there you go. Of course, you'll catch him. Stoney's going to be with us on Thursday night as well. We're going to have some special guests on Friday night, so it's going to be a big weekend. Today on the show, we're going to get into some sleeper running backs and tight ends. We have not addressed those 2 positions yet, so we'll get Zach to give you some names that he likes, some names that I like later on in the draft for the Titans, since running back and tight end outside of Brock Bowers, really there's not a name that the Titans should be considering with the first or second round, even if they do trade back. So we'll get to some of those names a little bit later on. The vast majority of the show today is going to be focused on where the big board is wrong. The big board is wrong all the time. NFL executives make millions of dollars to make these decisions, and they are wrong all the time. I know Zach may never admit this, but he is wrong on occasion. I am also wrong.
Well,
all
on
the time.
occasion, I'll agree. On occasion, it's a very special occasion when it happens.
You noticed I said I'm wrong all the time. I said NFL executives who make millions of dollars to do this are wrong all the time, and I said you're wrong on occasion. I said on
that's
rare.
That's the perfect way to describe it,
as I would expect you to say. So obviously we've got a lot of stuff to get to. Where are the big boards wrong? Where are the consensus? Where's the unconventional wisdom completely wrong? Where is it unconventional? Not conventional, I should say. I've got one little quick prediction we'll get started with here in just a second as well. So lots of stuff to do. Special thanks to Sinkers for putting all this on. Lachlan Table, as well as Edley's Barbecue. All the money that we're going to raise next week goes to Our Kids Foundation. Make sure you check out the charity. Support the great kids of Middle Tennessee that need your help. So make sure you do that. And, of course, the Casing Group, buildkg.com. If you need some work done on your house, need any help buying or selling, renovating, remodeling, you name it, Kingston Group they're the folks you need to call. Buildkg.com is the website. I think that's everything.
I think you nailed it.
I'm tired already. I'm like you, running on fumes, ready for the draft to start. The allergies and the cold medication is coursing through my veins as we speak. So, all right. So I made an official prediction, and I just want to see. This is just a week out, and I want to see what you think about it. And it's sort of like, all right, I had to make a decision on this. So I made my decision of what I think is going to happen in the first round for the Tennessee Titans. I reserve the right to change this on Monday or Thursday, whenever we are next with you guys. But here was my official prediction. I just want to see what you think a week out, and then we'll get on with the show. I think the official pick for the Tennessee Titans for me on Thursday of next week is they trade back to 9 because they can't get a good enough deal to go back to 11 or 12 or 13 or 14. But they go back to 9. They take what they can get because Joe Alt's off the table, off the board at number 7, and they pass on a receiver and they draft Penn State offensive lineman Olu Fashanu. I think they trade back to 9 and take Fashanu. That's my official prediction. 1 week away. How crazy am I?
Can you make now full disclosure? This is can you do that in Jim White's stuff? Because this is where this originated. Is that what you put, or did you just put Olu Fashanu?
No, I said trade back to 9, Olu Fashanu is what I said. He said, okay.
Is that allowed? Can we do tradesies on this Jim White stuff? Because I just put in Malik Neighbors because I don't think Joe Alt's going to be there. But if I could have done a trade, I would have totally done a trade.
Well,
I'm so DM Jim White, see if I can change my answer here, because I think you're right.
Okay. So first of all, I like hearing that. I do believe that.
You know what? You know what this means? That this will be the rare occasion that I am wrong.
Well, no, because you said
I believe in you.
First of all, fuck you. Screw you guys. I'm going home. No, I think the thing we agree on here is Joe Alt's not available at 7. That's the thing we agree on. And so it could be Neighbors. It could be a number of people. We'll get to receivers. And again, guys that I think are busts or not busts or overrated or underrated. Where's the mock draft? Correct or incorrect? But my official prediction is, because here's the thing. I think they want too much when they move back to 11 or 12 or 13 or 16 or 18. I think they're going to ask for a lot, like they should. And I think what they do is they settle for like a little extra piece, right? They settle for a little side piece. They get a pick and they move back to 9. Then the Bears move up and get their receiver, which is probably Neighbors at that point. They move back knowing they can still get Fashanu with the 9th pick, and that's what they do. I think that is ultimately my prediction. So it may change between now and then, but that is ultimately my final prediction. So you should have put some caveats in your message there.
Well, I didn't know. I mean, I just assumed, because I've never seen anybody say trade back in any of these like little mock draft things that he typically does. So I figured that we were locked into whatever they're going to do at pick 7.
Well, so here's the thing. I think when you just
stuff, I got to talk to old Jim here.
I think what happens with Jim is you just send stuff to him and he just like copies and pastes.
Copies and pastes. Okay.
I think that's what he does. No, we love you, Jim. We love you, Jimbo. Look, I have said now for weeks that I don't think that Alt's going to be there, that the Titans don't think that Alt's going to be there, and that they do not want one of the receivers as their top priority. They are willing to take one if that's what they have to do, and that's a damn good second place prize. I still on this, right? Like, I still think, nothing has dissuaded me, and there were comments today. I think the Patriots may not take a quarterback. And if they don't take a quarterback, I think it could be Joe Alt, Marvin Harrison Jr., which causes just complete chaos. The chances that 4 quarterbacks go in the top 4 rounds are ridiculous. Ridiculously low. Yeah. I completely agree.
I think that even in the top 5 picks, having 4 quarterbacks. So I think there's going to be a lot of chaos that we're not expecting.
Yep.
And I'm here for it. That's why I love the draft, because we go through all this stuff and we talk about all these things. At one point, I've convinced myself that, this Joe Alt stuff is to the Chargers is a smokescreen. And now I'm thinking back to what Elliot Wolf said when I'm thinking about what Elliot Wolf said when they got the job, talking about building in the trenches, and his dad, Ron Wolf, is notorious for building in the trenches. I'm like, I don't know. Joe Alt at 3 could possibly be in play, so it'll be very interesting. PBK is giving his thoughts that Olu Fashanu is soft. He's the only person I've heard describe Olu Fashanu as soft.
No. I think he was ripping on somebody else. No,
he was saying you don't want Olu. He's soft, which is totally incorrect. Tell me what game he's soft in, because he'll say is the Ohio State game, which he was not soft in. But we'll see if there's any other games that he could point us to where soft, because I've noticed that if you ask PBK on Twitter, what games have you watched to come to this conclusion, he never responds.
All right. Derek says, what if Alt and Fashanu are both gone? Then that means a quarterback is clearly there, which means you can trade back. That would be my quick answer to that. Also, that means there's probably a receiver there. So there's good answers and good options here, no matter what about this. So here's a question from Daniel Frazier. Of course, shout out to Daniel. What's up, man? Did you guys see the reporting that any Denver trade up would include their 2025 first and Patrick Surtain? That is not for number 7. That strikes me as number 2, 3, or 4 is what that strikes me as.
That would definitely not be for number 7. And Patrick Surtain really does nothing. But I do think that there are other avenues. Doesn't have to be Patrick Surtain, but I do. The thing was talking about trying to get so basically what Tony Pauline has been reporting for a while since the Shrine Bowl has been the fact that essentially Denver has been wanting to trade up because Sean Payton missed out on Patrick Mahomes. There's a whole thing about it on Patrick Mahomes, and it is all about essentially they thought they were going to get Patrick Mahomes. They tried trading up, and I guess either ownership or the general manager at the time said no. And then they saw John Ross go to Cincy, and they were like, okay, we're going to get him. And then all of a sudden, the Kansas City Chiefs jump in front of him, grab Patrick Mahomes. And ever since then, life has been rough for Sean Payton, and he has not let it go. So he's been talking about jumping up into this top spot in one of these top spots to grab one of the top 4 quarterbacks. Now, that's, like I said, Patrick Mahomes or Patrick Surtain, Chargers and Cardinals both could use a cornerback, right? So that's tantalizing for them, not for the Tennessee Titans necessarily, unless I guess you trade back trade Cheeto back or something. You know what? So I would say, but that does leave open the table for a trade back to 12. If at 7 there's a quarterback still there, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, bingo. Here's the deal: if Sean Payton wants to make decisions today or next Thursday based on demons he's chasing from 5 years ago, let's be the one that takes advantage of it. Okay, because that does not mean there's a Patrick Mahomes in this draft. You can tell me that you learned your lesson from Patrick Mahomes all day and go up and trade and draft Jayden Daniels and not get Patrick Mahomes. So I'm happy to take.
It's
all
also weird
in that.
By the way, in that same piece is that okay, well, if they can't land in the top 4, then they may trade back into the first to get Bo Nix, which then you're kind of saying, so there's no difference between that kind of feels like you're drafting because you desperately need a quarterback. If that is the case, it's not like I believe in Bo Nix. If you believe in Bo Nix, just go ahead and take him at 12. But but it's also kind of like saying that
otherwise take Skoronski.
Kind of close to Bo Nix or something. I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's a weird situation. But we'll see. We'll see. I think there's a lot of wild cards in this draft because there's that Las Vegas, New Orleans, Denver, and I may get the order out of whack. But those 3 guys are right next to each other, and they all need a quarterback. So and we think Las Vegas likes Michael Penix, but does the other 2 want to jump up just in case the Raiders try to throw something crazy together? I feel like those 3 guys are very interesting teams to watch.
Who was the team? Who you and I were on the air, I think, for the Steelers picking a quarterback. Who was it that they were obsessed with? Was it Desmond Ridder? Or was it Malik Willis?
No, it was Malik. It was Malik, and Kenny Pickett is who they showed the most interest in through the pre-draft process. A lot of interest in Malik.
So the reason I say that is because you're reminding, because I agree with you, I think we're going to have chaos. And a lot of what we're going to talk about today is where are all these consensus boards wrong? Where are people, what are we missing? Let's be preemptive here and try to guess at what we think is going to be crazy and what's going to be chaotic. Because I agree with you. There is almost a 0% chance. It's very improbable that picks 1 through 4 are quarterbacks. That just is statistically extremely improbable. So that means things are going to happen. And what I remember about the Steelers pick is that they had been telegraphing who they wanted all along. And then they picked the other guy. And that is what I think could be happening with all of these teams linked to all of these quarterbacks. So we're going to start with this: who's overrated, who's underrated, where are the consensus boards wrong, where, if you guys have questions you guys want to ask about a player, please jump into the comments. Again, tickets available still for Thursday night. Not too many, only a couple left for Friday night. Those links are going to be posted on the social accounts as soon as the show is over, but they're also in every YouTube video since we started a couple of weeks ago, as well as on the podcast feed. So that's where you can find those links. So let's start with which quarterback falls and is overrated. And my my question would also include, and why is it Jayden Daniels?
Repeat the question. Sorry, I got distracted by something off screen.
Off screen. It's always off screen with you. Which quarterback falls? So if it's not going to be 4 that go in the
it's
top 4 or
100%
5.
Jayden Daniels.
Exactly.
I totally agree with you. I think that the people that here's my thing about Jayden Daniels. I know there's new ownership and new coaches there with the Commanders, right? But there has to have been someone inside that building that watched RG3 when he was with Washington, right? Because, I mean, Jayden Daniels is RG3. He's a skinnier RG3, in my opinion. And the fact that he takes all these unnecessary hits, I think he only had like 48% of like, he stayed in the pocket only like 48% of throws. That's not going to work in the NFL. And he can't stay healthy. I don't think, and I may be completely wrong, but if the Commanders, I'd be so surprised. To me, that would be the biggest surprise if they took Jayden Daniels, because then I don't think that Jayden Daniels is going to go to the Patriots. I think J.J. McCarthy, or they take someone else, or they draft. The wild card team to watch with Jayden Daniels is the Vikings. Supposedly, what I've heard this morning on the radio is that the Vikings like Jayden Daniels. They've done the most homework on Jayden Daniels, and that's who they like. I don't know why, but I guess it's because they're going to just get him out and just throw deep.
Purple and gold. It's purple and gold. They like purple and gold.
Too.
Yeah.
But I think Jayden Daniels is the quarterback that does not go number 2 overall. I don't think he's the 3rd quarterback off the board. I do think he's the 4th quarterback off the board, but that is a fall, like you said, from where he's being projected, which is a resounding number 2. And I also think, speaking of big boards, him being the 4th overall player on consensus big boards, I don't care that he plays quarterback. He's not the 4th best player in this draft.
So here's why I want to. I agree with everything you're saying. Jayden Daniels is the one that I think falls. I think he's the one that I think is a little overrated on the big boards. But here's the thing about Jayden Daniels, and it's almost like you pendulum back and forth on this. What I like about Daniels in general is when you are a big-time prospect, you guys know about this, when you're a big-time prospect with big-time pedigree, you step into college football and you are very good right away. People don't remember 17 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, extremely productive and efficient as a true freshman at the Power 5 level for Arizona State. Not the SEC, but Power 5 level as a true freshman. Pandemic happens. I actually talked with his offensive coordinator a lot during the pandemic about how they develop him with like Zoom and stuff. I think that slowed down all of these guys' growth. Same thing with Bo Nix. Same thing with Penix. I think it slowed down all their growth. And then he transfers, and he continues to get better year over year, and all of a sudden he has his best year. So I think he has a chance to be a good player. But like Brock Bowers, there is going to be inherent risk with a guy who weighs 180 pounds and likes to run the football at the quarterback position. Lamar Jackson weighs 40 pounds more and gets hurt a lot. So that risk is going to scare some folks away. The talent is going to attract some folks, but the risk is going to scare some folks away. So I think he's the guy who falls.
I would just be so surprised if the Commanders are just like, okay, we're going to repeat the same damn mistake again. Because if you do, to me, Jayden Daniels, out of all the quarterbacks, I guess I would say him and Michael Penix are probably I don't know. I kind of like Michael Penix from a mental standpoint, but I don't know. I'll say this because Michael Penix is out of my top 5 quarterbacks. Out of the top 5 quarterbacks, Bo Nix included, Jayden Daniels is the one that's going to get you fired. Like I think that he's going to get a GM
if he's terrible,
coach fired.
Yeah, if he's
I think it's a high chance he's terrible. And
what
maybe
about
then he should be my top 5 if I really believe that. But
what about Daniel says Williams, JJ, Drake May in that order, with Drake May going to the Vikings and a trade up from 11 to 3. What do you think about that order?
No, I think if May's there, I think I could see the Vikings doing that for JJ if he's there, and the Patriots agreeing to do that for JJ. But I think May's number 2. I think we're all overthinking it. I think
I agree. I think it's Williams, May. That's it. But I do think JJ McCarthy's the one that has moved up. But I've said that for a while. So
yes,
that
but
brings
I also
me.
think that JJ probably does deserve it if you really start breaking down the games and everything, because he is a winner. He has the mental game. He has the arm that you need. He has the pro style experience, and he just wins. I do think he deserves it, but I also think there's a big drop off from May to McCarthy. Like, I think there is that.
I could get
I
on
think
that.
it's Williams and May, and then everybody else.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. So, all right, next question. Of the 3 wide receivers, one of them is a bust. Which one is it going to be?
I'm going to say, okay, so this is an interesting conversation. So obviously it depends on where they go, right? From either of these guys. I don't think there is a such thing as a wide receiver that is completely situation proof for the most part. But I think relative to where they'll be drafted and the onus that has been placed on their draft status, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the most likely to bust.
Interesting. So
I think if he goes to Arizona, I think they don't have a very good quarterback. If he ends up at Arizona, I could see him not living up to the potential that people have placed on him. Because people are talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. as a can't miss, flawless prospect.
Like he's
he doesn't really have NFL. Yeah, he doesn't
like
have he's kind of like his dad, doesn't have NFL speed, but this is a different time, a different era, and he's going to be paired with a different quarterback. So we'll see how that goes. But I don't think that either of them will bust in the traditional sense. So I don't think that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to go and be a 500-yard receiver like Treylon Burks or 300-yard receiver and then flame out of the league.
Yeah.
I do think that there's a difference between reputation, right? We talk about it with Trevor Lawrence. He was called this generational quarterback when he never really was. But he was called that. He was taken number 1 overall. He was given all these props throughout the pre-draft process without even throwing the football. And he lands with the Jaguars, lands with Urban Meyer that has stunted at his development. Doug Peterson, he's never reached that point.
Every quarterback the Jets have drafted.
Right. So, I kind of look at it in that sense. I think that Marvin Harrison Jr. will be a 1,000-yard receiver, but he'll kind of get lost in the mix, in the shuffle. And I think that's a bust with everything that everybody has said about Marvin Harrison Jr. leading to this point.
I don't necessarily think any of them will be bust, but that's why the point of the conversation is interesting. Yeah. It's like I will say Trevor Lawrence looked the part when he was throwing over linebackers and underneath safeties as a true freshman against Alabama's defense, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah, that was a very long time ago, and he never built up on that.
So I think if you would have asked me this 2 months ago, I would have said Rome Odunze. I would have said, I'm not sure about the twitchiness. I'm not sure about the athletic ability. I'm not sure. I'm just not. I don't. He's such a good system quarterback or system receiver with a great quarterback, a great coach, scheme, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I have come around on just him being a DeAndre Hopkins type of player. He's just a professional. He is a consummate professional. He's a tactician at his craft. I am now on the Neighbors side of this. Now, again, I would take Malik Neighbors, and I think the Titans will be better with him. But if you're asking me which guy has the most work to do, he has the least polish and could bust out, I'm now on the Malik Neighbors train of this. But again, the point of this conversation...
why I disagree, because his athleticism in today's NFL will buy you a lot of time.
I'm with
his yards after catch, his explosiveness will buy you stats. That's what everybody judges it, right? It's not for a wide receiver. It's not about wins; it's about the stats. So he's such a creative chess piece. I think it would be hard to find a way to call him a buzz unless he's taken over Marvin Harrison Jr. And then you maybe have a different conversation to have. But being that he's wide receiver too, so that's just kind of how I look at it. It's like I agree with you. I don't think either 3 of these guys are going to bust in the traditional sense, but I do think when you talk about reputation leading into the draft, heritage, pedigree, the amount of flowers being thrown at the feet of prospects, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. has the chance.
I think the one who's least good at playing receiver is Malik Neighbors. Right now today. That doesn't mean anything down the road, but right now today, I think he's the least good at playing wide receiver. And again, I think
Rome Odunze secretly the best, but nobody wants to talk about
it. That's maybe true. I may not disagree with that. I would take Harrison, but I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think what's interesting is none of these guys are like Troy Williamson, John Ross,
Corey Davis.
down and down. Well, but at least Corey Davis had like 800-yard receiving season. Some of these guys don't catch any passes like ever. So I don't think any of them are going to be like that. Could one of them end up like Corey Davis and have like 2.5 decent seasons and not be great? Yeah, I think that's possible. All right, who is in the top 30 consensus top 30? Everyone thinks is a first round pick. And I don't know how many names you got on this list, but I want to know how many names in the top 30. There is no debate. And I'll set you up here. For example, Nate Wiggins. I haven't seen anybody mock Nate Wiggins into the second round. Cornerback out of Clemson. Haven't seen anybody say he's outside of the first round guy. He is a consensus, almost across the board, top 30 prospect. How many guys in that top 30 are you looking at going, no chance, total bust, not deserving, they need to be a second round pick, then maybe you take a risk on them?
Oh man. I'm looking at this consensus top 30 and I really can't find an answer for you. I think the closest, I think there's two guys that probably, well, I guess there's three, but they've kind of been projected to be on that border first round, second round anyway. But if you're telling me that who is likely to go into the first round that maybe shouldn't out of this top 30, I would say Adonai Mitchell and Chop Robinson. And then I would say the guy that's in the top 30 that's not going to go in the first round is Jackson Powers Johnson. Because I don't know if you've heard everything that has come out lately from anonymous scouts in Bob McGinn's Substack article, which you have to pay for. So it's not for, wide release and all this kind of stuff. But man, there is some hate by scouts on Jackson Powers Johnson attitude. And I think with Graham Barton hovering there and the team that's been linked to both of these guys are the Dolphins, maybe you see the Dolphins take JPJ if the Steelers take Graham Barton. But I don't know. I'm kind of not feeling the JPJ love from the NFL. I still like JPJ, but I think the NFL is a little bit different.
But statistically, I mean, there's a good chance, like, you go down this list, and it's hard, like Terrion Arnold, Quinyon Mitchell, Jared Verse, Olu Fashanu, Fuaga, Laitu Latu, Byron Murphy, Brian Thomas, Troy Fontanu. There's a good chance that like a third of those names are not good NFL football players. And we've got to figure out who they're going to be.
It's a really weird, like, lower third. Because, like, Jerzon Newton has dropped way too far. I don't really understand why. I mean, we're talking about a guy that was the number one defensive guy and was a top 15 consensus player who's dropped down now 10 spots to 25. And I understand that there's a little bit of injury concerns there. But that's a guy that screams to me, we're going to be here on draft night and everybody's going to be praising Howie Roseman for somehow getting Jerzon Newton. Now, in my mock draft, Cooper DeJean is going to be a Philadelphia Eagle because I just think that's right in stone. But like,
I don't know, he didn't play at Georgia. I don't know.
Can't believe all these players, all these teams passed on Jerzon Newton. Just let Howie Roseman get another one, and that's just kind of how the NFL draft goes. But I'm with you. I don't believe in the Chop Robinson hype. And I do not believe in the Adonai Mitchell hype. And they're for very different reasons. But for the most part, they're just two athletic guys that have no clue how to play football, in my opinion.
AD Mitchell is 26th, according to the consensus rankings. And Chop Robinson's 28th. I wrote both of them down. So I have both of them on my list. I have Amarius Mims and Nate Wiggins written down as well. But I also really like Amarius Mims. And if he started the entire season, there's a chance he's like a top 10 pick. So I'm very torn on him, but that's another name that I would keep an eye on. I'm with you on Newton. He at one point was like a top 7, top 8 player in the draft, and now he's down in the mid-20s. That's either super concerning because because here's the other thing that's happening in the draft is that you and I talked about this before, and we're going to get to some of these names. There's a lot of guys that start this process back in December, like outside of the top 100. And I'll mention 2 of them here because we're going to get to them later. But Junior Colson out of Michigan and Ricky Pearsall at Florida. Those are guys that if you did a mock on the internet with one of these websites, you get them in the 4th round at pick 106 for the Titans all day. And what's happened is they've elevated themselves to where they probably were all along in the public, which is near that top 50 mark. I'm curious if Newton is doing that because he's just not as good as, Aaron Donald or even Jeffrey Simmons fully healthy, who would have been a top 10 pick if he was fully healthy. So I'm thinking about these, these defensive linemen that have gone in the top 10. I just don't think he's on that level. So that's why I think he's fallen. The question is he fallen accurately or is he or is some now, or are people overreacted and now he's too far down the board? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think because they take about like 150. There's 150 draft websites, and Stacking the Inbox is not one of them that has put in a big board, has submitted a big board. And if we did, we'd probably put in the Stoney's big board. We'd probably break it because they're gonna be like, how do we even put Drake Stoops on here? But at the end of the day, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, well, there's 150 websites. The best big boards in these situations, and with their top 100 at the very minimum, only get around 81 of them right.
Yep.
And again, top 100 is a little bit different than going top 30. But at the end of the day, I think that people this whole Jazon Newton thing just doesn't make sense to me. And I think that the injuries matter. But if the injuries matter, then you got to take a lot of these guys off the board, right? Like you got to drop them down. You got to drop down Nate Wiggins. You got to drop down Cooper DeJean. You got to drop down Kool-Aid McKinstry. At some point, we just have to understand that just because they got injured doesn't necessarily mean they'll get injured again. Because look at Leatu Letu. He's been injured like all the time, and he's still at 16. And I think Johnny Newton is just as good as up there.
Letu is one of the names I would circle. I think edge is such a valuable position, and I think corner and tackle is the same way. But I think edge is such a valuable position that he is being forced up boards to be on level with Dallas Turner and Jared Verse. I would have him 15 or 20 spots lower. I'd have him end of the first round. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but that's the guy I would move. I think that what happens is that edge rusher, much like Chop Robinson, they see skills. You see athleticism. You see all these things. It's like, but it takes a while to develop. And I think Letu is a little too high for me. I think he belongs in like the 25 to 30.
There's a lot of film on Letu that shows him getting physically handled by guys that are getting drafted after him. But there's really good reps too. I just think that I do like Letu from he can win you in multiple ways where other guys maybe lack his technical prowess. But it's kind of like a Caleb Murphy situation. Like you see all the tools, you see all the athletic ability, but is he ever going to stay healthy? And I think that's a big red flag for him in particular. Whereas maybe just suffering an injury recently, like Nate Wiggins, it shouldn't affect that much. But I'm not a big Nate Wiggins fan. He's just a guy that right here.
If Letu is like, if he doesn't, I don't think he has plus power. I don't think he has plus burst, and that's my issue with him. I think he's just good, and that to me says like early second round pick. Not top 12 pick. And that's all. That's the only thing. So he's one of my names that I would circle and say, I think he might be a solid contributor for a team, but I don't see starting high-level defensive end, pass rush maniac in the NFL. I don't see that yet. But that's just one of those names. All right, what about names? This happens every year. Guys that are in that like 40 to 60 range in the rankings and the consensus boards, and 2 or 3 of them are going to get drafted in the first round. Who are those names, in your opinion?
Oh, I really have a hard time figuring out what the NFL thinks of 2 players, and that's Braden Fisk and Tyler Nubin. And they both play, and really someone today is now, and it's Jordan Schultz, so take it with a grain of salt. But Mike Sandra still the worst name to try to type out and pronounce, by the way. It is just terrible. They're talking about talking about him jumping up. You know, I would say someone that's out of the top 32 would be Darius Robinson, or even Marshawn Nealon is a guy that we have heard. But I think people are going to like Braden Fisk, and I think people are going to like Tyler Nubin. I just have a hard time placing what team in that first, because I only can really place 28 guys for sure going to go in the first round. And then there's like 4 guys that's kind of like this nebulous, situation where you're just kind of like, well, you could see this person being up there, and it just kind of really depends. But I feel like, Tampa Bay, Braden Fisk kind of fits, in that spot. Tyler Nubin could, I know they're working on other things, but, they're working on other stuff, the Bills, maybe, because, yeah, they need a wide receiver, but wide receiver's really deep, but they also really need a safety because they just let 2 of them go. So it's kind of like, I just don't know where to place those two, but Tyler Nubin's the best safety, and Braden Fisk is a guy that, people really like.
He's a football player. That's all I know. I don't know where he may not
Yeah.
fit into your defense, but he's a football player. Surprise first rounders from Stoney: Christian Haynes, Ricky Pearsall, and Zach Frazier. Ricky Pearsall is absolutely one of those guys. I think Mike Sanderstill is another one that he's a guy that I've been talking about almost every episode on this show. I think he's really, really good football player. I wish he fit the Titans. The Titans don't need him. As a Packers fan, I'd love to have him with one of those early second-round picks that they have. But I could see Mike Sanderstill getting moved up boards really fast, and I think I agree with Stoney on Ricky Pearsall and Zach Frazier. I think Graham Barton is probably already considered a first-round pick. I don't think he's sort of in that conversation. If we're talking about guys who are truly outside of the top 32 that haven't really been mocked in the first round at all, I think that's the kind of guy we're talking about.
You could see with Rashee Rice going down, gonna be suspended. You could see them taking a shot on like an Xavier Legette. You could see them taking a shot on Ladd McConkey, who's 33. Ricky Pearsall would make some sense too. So there's just guys that kind of float around. The Chiefs are just such an interesting team. I don't really know what they're going to do quite yet.
Let me give you a name I want to throw out there, because one of the things that executives get just it's like moth to the flame is that pure athletic ability. I could see Peyton Wilson flying up boards on draft day because of the athletic ability.
I don't. I just think that age, frame, and all that and his injury history. I don't know if I can get there on that.
Okay,
I'd see Edgerrin Cooper be a first-round pick before I'd see Peyton Wilson be a first-round pick.
Okay, I could see that. There's just I'm not ready to go. We had another vote in here. The Cole Strange first-round watch, Dominique Puny. That's the guard out of Kansas. He's got a chance to move up boards as well. My 2 picks would be Ricky Pearsall and Mike Sanderstill. Those would be the 2 shockers. I think the people are like, nobody's thinking is going to go in the first round. Those would be my 2 shocking guys.
Too late. You can't say that about Mike Sanderstill now.
But you back me up on this. You can back me up on this. I've been on him for like 5 or 6 episodes. I've been talking about him. Like,
you've been right on top of him this whole time. And Mike. I will have to say that you and Mike have both been preaching about this nickel only corner.
He's very
we'll see.
He's very tiny. He's not a fully grown NFL player. but he's a damn good football player. Pearsall is a guy that I've been beating the drum for Pearsall for a long time too. So all right. So anybody else here's some names in that area that I think are overrated, like Troy Franklin. I don't want anything to do with Troy Franklin.
Yeah, I really liked Troy Franklin at the beginning, and then I've now talked myself way out of him. I'm just so out on that.
McConkey is at 33, sort of consensus-wise, and I think he's absolutely going in the first round. I just think he's I don't know why. I agree with you as well on Darius Robinson. I think he could go in the first round. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see about some of these other guys. What about Chris Braswell? Does he fly up boards on draft day because the gap in the edge pass rusher is there seems to be a drop off and a gap there?
I think he'll get drafted before his consensus pick of 51. I think he'll get drafted before then. If he right now the most mocks, I guess, to have him go into the LA Rams in the second round, which would be a steal at 52 if that were to happen. So I think he'll go before that just because of the value position of edge.
Yeah, I can be on board with that. We'll get to running back and tight end, some of your sleepers, Zach, here coming up in just a second. So level setting guys, we've already mentioned Ricky Pearsall and Mike Sanderstill. It's what's interesting about those 2 guys is they were pretty deep on boards for the vast majority of like December, January, and February. They've kind of risen to where I would call it like level setting. I think they've level set to where they're appropriately ranked, and I think it's not just like a fast late rise in the process. It's like that's where executives have always had them. The media is sort of just now catching up on some of these guys. And I think Chris Braswell probably fits into that group. I think Roman Wilson fits into that group. He's a guy I was even sort of like, all right, I'm not sure. And then you start to study the game and how he was used in the offense. And you go, okay, this guy's going to be a slot player in the NFL for a little while. I think he deserves to be up higher on the board. How many are there? A lot of guys like that. Junior Colson's another one. A lot of Michigan players, apparently. Is there who is sort of risen, but you think is done so appropriately?
Ooh, I think I would go with Dominic Puny would be one. He's
That's a good one.
projected to go in like the 5th or 6th round. Now he's up to 88. The highest he's been is 50. I think that is a guy that makes sense in that area. I think he is. I've always said that he may go day 3, but I think that personally I've always thought that he'll go day 2, and there you go.
Yep. Yep. I like
I
that.
think a guy that maybe has lowered to his proper section is Brennan Dorless. So Brennan Dorless and Mason Smith both have done like little flips of their trend, I guess you would say.
Yep.
Mason Smith was really, really low, and he's back and to his appropriate spot at 76. And right underneath him is Brandon Dorless, who I think was way too high. And he's like this kind of, you don't know what he is unless you have to have a plan and know exactly what he is. So him being down at 77, right underneath Mason Smith, as far as a defensive line edge player goes, I think is 2 guys right there that make a lot of sense. And I think Michael Hall Jr. flying up the boards, going from 5th round to now, borderline 2nd and 3rd makes a lot of sense too.
That's an interesting one. No, I had Mason Smith written down at 76. That feels far more accurate than what he was originally, which is like outside of the top, like 120. I think Junior Colson up to 61 absolutely is that's a guy who was outside of the top 100.
I still think that's a little low.
I agree with you. I think your boy has moved up boards. I think the last couple of weeks, month or so, and that's your boy Rook. Row. Just say row. 3 rows. And
we called him Rook Nukem on the F words yesterday. So Rook Nukem.
He's a guy who's at 68 overall. Again, these are the consensus numbers that we're using, kind of combing the internet here. This is like AI generated mock rankings is what this is. I think he's at 68. I think I think him and Mason Smith could actually both be a little low. I think both those guys could move up a little bit.
His peak was up in the 4th round in like 48 or 50. Rook was, and I think that's appropriate for him. I'm not sure that why he's still so low now, why he's fallen back down since April 8th. Could just be other players being pushed up the boards, right? So it's not necessarily an indictment on him. It's just that other players have been pushed up on the board. But there's not a lot of defensive linemen that I'm going to be taking over Rook.
What about Patrick Paul at 65? That seems like he's gone down from like the mid 40s.
That's about where I think 38's really high for Patrick Paul, in my opinion. But it's kind of like what I was talking about yesterday on Football Under the F Words, is like there's something about there's the old sales trick, right? So if you're buying a car and the price that they're going to show you is $15,100. Well, they're going to knock it down to $14,999 because that's what that looks better for whatever reason. It's a psychological thing. And so there's a psychological thing where, like, if you traded back with the Raiders and you picked up 44 instead of 38, like, okay, I'm not really sold on Patrick Paul and Junior Colson at 38, but that 44, something about 44, I'm like, oh, it's only 6 spots different, but
totally
that makes it a little bit different. Totally different. So there's like some kind of psychological thing with how the numbers look. And I guess you associate 38 with 32 more than you associate 44 with 32 and 33, at the top of the draft. So, but if the Titans were to go Malik Neighbors, Patrick Paul, I'm going to be fine. And I think Patrick Paul unless Tyler Guyton falls, and even if Tyler Guyton does fall, I think Patrick Paul is the best 2nd round OT. And he's a guy that could sneak into that 1st round that's way low right now. Him and Roger Rosengarten, because Stoney reminded me that the 49ers are really digging Roger Rosengarten right now. And they pick at 31. So he's consensus 104, but I think everybody's way low on Roger Rosengarten.
That's the most Kyle Shanahan thing I've ever heard of.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting, but Patrick Paul is a guy that could sneak into the 1st round as well, over a guy like Tyler Guyton.
Saint Trussell or Andrew Phillips more likely in the 1st round. I think it's
everybody else believes Andrew Phillips. I mean, that's what Brugler believes and Nate Tice believe. I would say that
Talk about level
Andrew
setting.
Phillips is projected to be a slot corner. If I'm taking a slot corner or nickel corner, I'm taking your boy Mike.
Yep. No, I agree with that. It's interesting hearing, because I know you had tweeted about this, like Alt and Pearsall as the combination first, second round pick, that you'd be pretty happy with that. And then you kind of asked for some responses. And every time I do this exercise with either Neighbors or Adunze, pick who you want at 7. And then you take Paul or even Kingsley Simatua or whoever else you want at 38. There's no chance it's a better combination than Fashanu and Pearsall, or Alt and Pearsall, or Fuaga and Lad McConkey, or Roman Wilson. Like, there's no way that the receiver first, tackle second is a better combination. The odds of the second round receiver hitting are significantly higher than the second round tackle hitting. And
yeah,
so it feels like that's just not the right way to go. But that's why Paul, I think, has fallen, and he's sort of leveled off as like a late second round pick, because there's lots of potential there. But he's more like NPF, honestly, than anything else. And I'm just saying that because that's where he was kind of picked in the draft. There's a couple of names here that and at receiver in particular, that are top 100 sort of consensus that I'm not feeling them. And we'll get to some tight ends here in just a second. But I know you don't like either of the other Washington receivers, but Jalen Polk at 62, that's too rich, way, way, way too rich for my blood. Any of these running backs.
And I agree. Someone said the other day, you're drafting a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5, that maybe turns into a wide receiver 2. Maybe.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And the other guys, like I'm not. You've heard me say this. I'm not a Jermaine Burton guy. That's not a player I would take in the top 100. There's plenty of other names that I like, but I don't like him.
If you are to believe that this coaching staff with Tyke Tolbert, Brian Callahan, and having 2 vet wide receivers, if you are to believe that Jermaine Burton cannot be corralled, then don't draft him. But if you think that with that support system in place, with a veteran wide receiver coach that's been coaching for forever, and 2 wide receivers that could take him under his wing, he's good. You cannot deny the talent that is Jermaine Burton. You can deny the talent not for his on the field stuff, but you can for his off the field stuff.
Why not?
But if
why can't I say that?
You can do it.
Why can't I say that he's like underachieved most of his career physically?
Because he hasn't. I mean, if you look at all the advanced metrics, watch the film, look at the quarterbacks he's been saddled with during his time, he's good. He is a top. Listen, let me say this. If he didn't have the off-field issues and all that kind of stuff, because you could kind of say that, yeah, he's kind of underachieved because of his attitude. I would agree that would be, it's not for lack of talent. It's because of his attitude. I could see that. And if he didn't have those issues, we would be talking about him as wide receiver 4 in this draft class. But unfortunately, he does have the issue. So he's got to go to the right place. And if you feel that you are the right place and it works, you are getting one of the best wide receivers in this draft class. It's just going to come down to which team does he go to. And if he went to a team like the Tennessee Titans, let's say they pick up an extra 3rd or pick up a 4th or an extra 4th, or maybe they just draft him in the 4th, I'd be willing to take that shot. Now, if you're talking about drafting him in the 2nd round, no. But I would say 3rd or 4th round, and that's where I'm at with Jermaine Burton. I think that the talent has to be harnessed, and that's a difficult thing to do.
Yeah. I will add the running backs to this in the 2nd round. I don't like any of them. Jonathan Brooks, Trey Benson, Jalen Wright. We'll talk about running backs in a second, but I don't want to go too long on there. But I do think there is a drop-off at wide receiver after about 14 or 15 wide receivers. I think there's a pretty big drop off, and I would not have, for example, below that cut for me. I've got Tez Walker, I've got both McMillan and Polk from Washington. I've got Jermaine Burton below that cutoff. I'd have Javon Baker above that cutoff, right? I think is pretty fair. I'd have Malik Washington probably as like the last one, maybe on that tier.
I think that's fair.
But otherwise, like Brennan Rice, I like him for some reasons, but like he's below the cutoff for me. Johnny Wilson below the cutoff. I just think that there's a big drop off after the top 14 or 15 receivers. And
it's nice that you came around to this, because this is exactly what two drunk guys in Mobile got up on Stacking the Inbox and have told everybody that we don't think the wide receiver depth is as good as it is, because we also don't like, me and Stoney don't really like Keon Coleman. We don't like Adonai Mitchell that well. There's a lot of these top guys that you would put in your top 15 that have the same or worse flaws than Jermaine Burton. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, I wouldn't do it in the second round because there's an objective truth to rankings. But Javon Baker is better than Adonai Mitchell. I'd bet money on it that Javon Baker is better than half the guys that's going to get drafted ahead of him. And I would say that Malik Washington's probably going to be a more productive receiver than some of the other guys. But objectively, there's just the athletic talent just means so much in today's NFL. And if I was a scout and someone said, we got to take Adonai Mitchell because he ran this and this and this, or we got to take Keon Coleman because he's so big.
Don't you talk about Keon Coleman like that.
I would say, well, let's look at the film. Let's look at the stats. And you want to talk about underachieving. I think those two guys underachieved way more than Jermaine Burton did.
Oh man, you give me Alt and Keon Coleman, and I'm good to go. But I know that I like Keon Coleman way more than you.
You're going to be good to go to next year when we're picking first.
It's okay.
Because Keon Coleman sucks.
Yes, they'll be the worst team. No, you're totally right. No, you're totally right.
Another wide receiver. I messed that up, by the way. I shouldn't have said that because I messed that up. But what I'm saying is that you're still going to need a wide receiver 1 next year, even with drafting Keon Coleman, and a wide receiver 3 because you didn't get one of those either.
I think you're right. I think they draft Keon Coleman and they end up as the worst team in the NFL because of Keon Coleman. That's what I think happens.
They could.
Look. It's also true. You've never missed. You've never been wrong. So I don't know what Stoney's saying. Hold my puke in. I don't know what he's talking about.
About Jermaine Burton. You do not.
Yeah,
like
I don't
Jermaine
like.
Burton.
I just don't think he. I think he's a fine. I actually think he's a fine. I don't know. I just think he's okay. I don't think he's very good. But that's just me. That's some of that is the mental stuff. But the mental stuff ties into why he's not been all that great. But we'll see. All right, let's do. You want to do any other names? I know you wrote some stuff for PK. You've got Adisa Isaac out of Penn State, Hunt, and Marshawn Kneeland as like some
better
guys
than
really
Chop
love.
Robinson. Like I mean, at some point, going for traits doesn't mean much. And Adisa Isaac has so many good traits on top of athleticism and stuff like that that I don't know. I don't if you're asking me, would I rather have Chop Robinson or Adisa Isaac who play on the same team? I'm taking Adisa Isaac. If you'd rather me have Keon Coleman or Johnny Wilson at their perceived value, I'd rather take Johnny Wilson. I'm not taking either, but I'd rather take Johnny Wilson. So that's kind of where I'm at. There's a lot of these partners, a lot of these teammates that one guy is way out of whack and you can get the other guy for half the price and probably get better production, if not the same.
So based on the big board, Marshawn Kneeland out of Western Michigan, a guy I think you and I both like, 58 overall is his consensus ranking. I think that's about right. I think that might actually be a little low for him. Adisa Isaac
but man, people want him at 38. I don't know. That's tough.
Adisa Isaac's number 70. I think again a little low, but okay. Then you go Jalix Hunt at 176. And if he's available in the 4th round, like that's a guy that you're circling and targeting.
Well, 176 is what, the 6th round?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to go early on those guys, though.
Yeah, you do. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, I'm with you. I mean, if he's there in the 6th round,
yep,
that's where I'm at.
All right, let's do tight end quickly here because it's not that big of a deal. Because it's super easy here. It's either take Brock Bowers and ignore the position, or pick a sleeper that you like late. That's kind of it. I don't want to see any conversation about running back or tight end with the 38th pick or even another 2nd round pick that they get. If that's a luxury pick, then you're talking extra corner, starting middle linebacker, edge rusher, not a running back or a tight end. So I don't want to hear Sanders on anybody's mouth. I don't want to hear Brooks or Benson or Braylon Allen or any of those names. I don't want to hear any of those names. But tight end, let me ask you this question. Is there a Kyle Juszczyk, fullback / tight end / positionless guy in this class that you like later on that would be a pseudo tight end?
And they've interviewed him and they've shown interest in him, and that's Jaheim Bell. You bring Jaheim Bell here, he's Kyle Juszczyk for me. I mean,
I don't think he blocks like Juszczyk.
Yeah, listen, I was reading this San Francisco 49ers book that I got right here.
I was setting you up.
And it's got all this stuff, right? It's got all these plays in it and everything.
I can see it.
And
Yeah.
it's awesome. Okay. You don't know how much Kyle means to this freaking offense. Like Kyle and Brandon Ayuk are the two most important pieces that make this offense go. And Kyle is insane. And I am all in. If you want to take a flyer on Jaheim Bell in the 5th or 6th round, he may even be there in the 7th. Who knows? I'm all in on some Jaheim Bell. Teach him how to block, get him feisty, but that guy can get you yards after catch. He's a mismatch nightmare. If you line him up at fullback, it would do wonders for this team. So I'd be all in on some Jaheim Bell. That's about the only tight end that would get me super excited about what they can do to this team in year one. I think like guys like Tip Ryman and Brevin Spanford get me excited for what they could turn into. But they're going to mainly be blockers, for the most part, and red zone threats, which red zone threats are pretty exciting too.
Well, and if Chig and Wiley can play out in space, then you maybe want a red zone threat. And this is where like the 3 names that I have written down are all names for like different reasons. Like I have Jaheim Bell written down, I have Theo Johnson written down, and I have Ben Sinnott written down, and I have written down for different reasons. Bell, I'm curious if he can block the way Kyle Juszczyk can. Like Juszczyk is a really good blocker. And I that's where he's got to learn it, but he is the same size as him. I think Sinnott's probably a little bit better blocker and might be able to play that role. I think Theo Johnson is a little bit more of a project, more of a true tight end, but he's more of like a Mercedes Lewis type where he's sort of like used in the red zone as a target. But again, all 3 of those guys could fit nicely with what they already have with Josh Wiley and Chig. So, but again, you also don't have to go earlier than the 4th or 5th round for those guys.
Yeah.
And as Stoney says, Sinnott played a little bit of fullback. He's the guy that I liken to Kyle Juszczyk a little bit more. Because I think Bell is more of a weapon. You can actually get him the ball in space and he can do some stuff. I'm curious about, if you're going to motion him into the backfield and then use him as a pull, a crack blocker on a pitch, like, can he do that yet? I don't know. I think that's an interesting conversation. All right. Running back.
To be honest, we didn't even get to watch it at Senior Bowl if he did or not, because the way where they put the tight ends on those blocking drills were so far away from us, so we couldn't see.
All right, so running backs, if they're picking at 106, is there anybody ahead of 106 that you would want as a sleeper project that you think? Even then, that's not even really a sleeper at that point. I mean,
I don't want anybody at
106.
I'm out on 4th, and I love. Listen, you'll never find anybody that loves Isaac Guerrero more than me, but I'm not drafting him in the 4th round. I understand you may have to, but I would not draft him in the 4th round. And I love everything about Isaac Guerendo's game. He fits perfectly with the Tennessee Titans, but I've liked Isaac Guerendo even before then. He's a home run hitter, but you just can't. I tell you, there's one guy that could pique my interest in the 4th round, and I was talking to Stoney about this today because I've seen a lot of propaganda that I agree with, but a lot of anti-UT propaganda about
the offense,
Jalen Wright. About Jalen Wright. And Jalen Wright, who saw only like 8% of stacked boxes.
Yeah.
He basically had it so freaking easy as a volunteer. He rarely had to face a defender in the front. So I'm curious how the NFL views a running back coming from that kind of offense that they didn't value the wide receivers in.
Or the quarterback.
And there's a chance, or the quarterback. So I wonder, is there a chance that Jalen Wright falls out of day 2? And I think there is a really good chance that he does. And I think that if he's there at 106, you could talk me into it. I wouldn't be too ecstatic, but you'd be pandering to some UT fans, sell some tickets. But I do think that, like, in the 4th round, probably Jalen Wright's the only guy that I think that could maybe be there that I would be a little tempted.
To your point about the offense and the NFL viewing the offense, clearly not a problem for Darnell Wright. I think the other position that it's not really a problem for is running back. Because they're not gonna look at his yards per carry, and they're not gonna look at his 3.1 yards per before contact. They're not gonna look at any of that stuff. They don't care. They're going to be like, all right, what did you do when you were in trouble? What did you do picking up the blitz? What did you do catching passes? What did you do when you had a defender in the gap that you're supposed to run to? Like they don't give a shit about that stuff. I think that offense absolutely is a gimmick offense for quarterbacks and receivers. I think that's absolutely.
But couldn't it be then for running backs too? I mean,
I think
the holes are wide open, the lanes are wide open, so your decisions are easier, your vision's clearer.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, you take. I think it's easier to take that stuff away from a running back and just look at broken tackles, physical traits, agility, short space agility, strength and power. I think you can. It's easier with the running back because it's like, here's the football, don't get tackled. Right, with the receiver, it's so much more than that. And I think the Tillman, and this is going to be a very unpopular take, but I guess I'll float it out there. The Tillman Hyatt combo in that offense with Hendon Hooker, I know that all three of these guys are better than those three guys last year, but the Daniels, Neighbors, Thomas thing, there's a lot of offensive system there that was cruising at LSU last year. There's a lot of that. I think that doesn't mean they're not much better than the Tennessee players. They are. But I think that element is a much bigger deal than it is for running backs and linemen. I think for linemen and a running back, you kind of are what you are. So here's my question. Garendo, you said at 106 if you wouldn't take him. What about who's available at 106 real quickly? Is Bucky Irving available at 106? Probably, right?
Yeah, I would assume so. I didn't really spend a lot of time on this running back class. This would probably be better suited for Stoney. He's actually watched a lot of them. But just want to say that of all the running backs that are eligible to be drafted this year, Jalen Wright ranks 20th in missed tackles forced. So I just want to throw that out there.
I think that's why he goes down boards, not because of the offense. Does that make sense? Like, I think
that's kind of a part of the offense too.
Well, I think what it does is it tells you that the numbers he racked up weren't indicative of the talent.
And they weren't really that good. I mean, if you really think about it, I mean, just 1,000 yards, sure. It was on 136 carries, but that just means you you didn't get touched because of how the defense played against you.
There were also three guys that got a lot of carries, so it was a very distributed offense. All right, Audric Estime, Jalen Wright, Marshawn Lloyd, any of those names on the board at 106?
No, none in the fourth round. I mean, fifth and sixth, I mean, that's a free-for-all. I don't really care what they really do. I may care a little bit in the fifth round, but sixth and seventh, just find ball players. Find guys that can contribute to this team, because that's what you need.
Do they need to draft a running back at all? Because I would argue they don't.
That's a good question, because I don't know how the NFL is going to react on day 3. I think if you see a lot of running backs flying off the board on day 3 in quick succession, then yes, you need to draft one, because your undrafted free agent pool is going to be a bunch of Julius Chestnuts, and Julius Chestnut's not good. I don't care what anybody says. I'm sure he's a nice guy.
Give me some Julius Chestnut.
Yeah, he's not a NFL quality running back, and they still need, by their own words, they still need a guy that can at least play on the goal line up the middle and get the hard runs if you're up late in the
Audric Estime is that guy.
I like him. I like Marshawn Lloyd in that role, but I just think those guys go a little bit ahead of where.
I agree with you, and I like Lloyd better than Estime, but I like Estime's sort of like mentality. Like, he's just week 1, day 1 against Navy back in the day, beginning of the season. He just said, you know what, we're just gonna run you into the ground, and that's the way he plays, and I like that style, especially as a compliment. Not
another Lions player just got suspended.
Oh God.
For gambling. Another one. After seeing Jameson Williams and another dude get suspended, this guy getting suspended too.
You saw the NBA give a lifetime.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. I misread the tweet. I'm an idiot. He's just got reinstated.
This is the problem with live content. Yeah, look, even Derek's like, I thought it was reinstated.
Yeah, sorry.
How about the NBA? How about the NBA player who got lifetime banned because he was trying to win prop bets on himself?
Can I say something real quick? And I know you'll agree. And just real quick, and then we close it out.
Yeah.
This anti-Brock Bowers stuff has gotten out of hand. If you think Brock Bowers is TJ Hawkinson or another tight end that's been drafted in the first round, then you haven't watched college football the last 3 years. He is a special talent. He's what everybody thought Kyle Pitts was, because I think he was always better than Kyle Pitts. He had better film, better games, better tape, and everybody called Kyle Pitts some generational can't miss. And then he flamed out, and I told everybody that he was not generational, and then he flamed out, wasn't ever used. Brock Bowers is a different breed. I'm not advocating for Brock Bowers at 7. I don't want anybody to get me wrong, or Brock Bowers over Alt or Neighbors. But we have gone now too far because now it's so rare a tight end works in the first round. Well, this is the tight end that will. This is the tight end that will work in the first round. Listen,
Tony Gonzalez was a first round pick.
Injuries matter. Yeah, right. Injuries matter. But if all things are created equal, Brock Bowers is a top 5 talent in this draft class out of all positions, and we need to start putting some respect on his name.
I'm the one who said, why do I keep? I listened to Brian Callahan talk 2 weeks ago, and I started the show with, why do I keep thinking that Ridley with Bowers with Hopkins would be pretty unstoppable for 1 year?
We got someone that says that's in Mike's tweets, okay, in his replies. Bowers didn't look much better to me than Jason Morrow or Eric Ebron, especially Eric Ebron. These super tight end prospects rarely achieve. I'm fine passing on him, which is fine. I'm okay with that part.
Yeah.
Maybe he's the one, but I'm fine. And I'm thinking, what?
Everyone is burned on Kyle Pitts because the conversation around Kyle Pitts was similar. Kyle Pitts never had the same complete game that Brock Bowers has. Although Bowers is not as elite of a blocker as some people think. Pitts didn't have any blocking. He's not really a blocker at all. I will also say that if you're going to buy low on Kyle Pitts, this might be the year now that he has a real quarterback. I would put that out there. Now that there's an actual starting NFL quarterback under center, they'll probably know how to throw him the football now. So also, you know what also helps Kyle Pitts? Having Drake London and Bijan Robinson on the same offense. That also helps. That offense is gonna cook this year, I think. So, all right. I think that just about does it for us. Tickets are available if you go to the 440 Sports Twitter page right now, or YouTube, or podcast app. You can get the links to the tickets for Thursday night and Friday night. All the money goes to charity, of course, the Our Kids Foundation. We're going to have a great time on Thursday night, a great time on Friday night. We're going to watch some draft. We're going to have fun. We're going to drink. We're going to eat, be merry. We're going to charity. We're going to benefit kids. It's going to be great. It's going to be a ton of fun. So come on out. We only have like 1 or 2 tickets left for Friday night, handful of tickets left for Thursday night. It will sell out. So make sure you check those links out. We do appreciate you guys. Sinkers Beverages, Kingston Group, making it all happen. Edley's Barbecue, Lachlan Table. All you guys are just, we appreciate you from the bottom of our hearts. So come on out. We're going to have a great time. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have a show on Monday, live from the space, to give you a show of what you got coming up, and probably make some predictions, and then it's draft night, baby. It's here. Can't freaking wait.
Thank God.
All right. Thank you guys all for commenting and for listening and for having fun. We do appreciate you guys. It makes the show a lot better when you guys are around, so we love you for it. Otherwise, for Zach, I'm Braden. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll talk to you on Monday.